my name is Krome, and this is Prospect Magazine TV. And today we got a hell of a show for you. We have a gentleman on I've been following for about 2 years, and he has this thing, this tool, this learning tool I call one-on-one traditional protocol. And this man is like I've been following for a couple of years. He's very smart. I think a lot of people are misguided by this whole like MC world, and he can straighten you out and give you a better view and a better knowledge about how this shit works, because a lot of people are totally confused about it. But like I say, I've been following James Washington. I've been following him for a few years, and what I found fascinating is that the way he explains things is so perfect that anybody can. This is kind of like the MC world for dummies. Like this one-on-one protocol, it explains things so amazingly that it just works. And I had to bring him on my show. It took a minute. I had to think about it. My vice president of my club suggested we bring him on because he's not a prophet, but it's like he just gives you like some really good knowledge on both sets. This man has been on the white set, the black set. He's been on all sets. So this is someone that everybody can listen to. Like I say, I call my show Prospect Magazine TV. But simple fact is, even though I've been on this set for 40 years, I'm still a prospect of life. I'm still learning how to be a better father to my children and just to be a better man. I'm 60, I'm in my 60s, and I'm still trying to figure shit out. Anyway, let's bring Mr. Washington on. Hey, brother, how you doing?
Doing good, doing good.
Good. So just tell me a little bit about yourself. So why did you start? I know you used to write for another social media thing. Who did you write for? And give us a little bit of your background.
I was originally I was writing with Sucker Free MC for, well, that was quite a few years. I think about 5 years. I did. I started out as just writing, and ended up being the chief editor. So I was running the page day to day for about 4 years. Wow, to start, I think I was about 10 years old, and my uncle bought me a little scooter, and we worked on it all day, cleaned it up. It was a little messed up, so we got it running. I got on that thing and ran into a pole. I literally ran through a fence. that was it for me. I was hooked to 100%. And, so then I just started getting some, I wanted to get information from, my family, because they were all involved in motorcycles. And so I just did a lot of just hanging around, like back in those days. I always tell people bike night was when you come and work on your bike. Everybody came and brought their bikes and hung out, and people brought some beer, whatever it is, and you worked on your bikes and you learned. And that was what bike night was. So for me, I turned into a student. So, by the time I was 12 years old, I was so immersed in the lifestyle. I was hooked. And so I would go to, the local areas like parks and things where I knew people would hang out at. I'm originally from Oakland. So, there was a big scene coming into Oakland at that time, huge scene coming into Oakland at that time, around 76, 78, it really exploded. And so I got a chance to, just be around people and just immerse myself, and I always asked them, I'll wash your bike, just give me some knowledge, just give me some information. So that was where I started, in terms of just learning about the lifestyle at a really early age. I think by the time I joined the military, and my first bike was a 1987 Honda Hurricane 1000. And, I bought that along with another guy. Like literally two of us bought a bike together and paid money for it and bought it. And we shared it. And inevitably he said, look, I don't want to ride it no more. So it was primarily mine, but I just got on the road and rode. And that's what it was back in those days. It wasn't how it is now in terms of the motorcycle set. There was really, you couldn't learn anything unless you got on the road, and that was just how it was. So that's my history of how I got into it. But I would say for the longest time I was an independent rider. I didn't want to join a club, and I think it was because of my father and my uncles. They didn't really think about clubs, and they didn't want to get into any clubs because some of the politics. So that was one of the reasons why I was independent for so long, and I just decided I just wanted to ride.
So how old were you when you decided to do the whole motorcycle clubbing thing? Because it seems like to me, like you said, like you say, you were a prospect, a kid, and you hung around bikers, and you just watched it, you listened. You had big ears and a very small mouth, which a lot of people today they don't have. And like myself, I just watched the guys, and I listened and listened and listened. Because to be honest with you, reading some of your stuff, dude, you're brilliant, and some of the stuff you write, and so factual.
Yeah, well, the biggest thing I think, like I actually started hanging around an actual motorcycle nation about 2010, and by 2011 I started prospecting. So my journey started in 1978, legitimately as a 12-year-old kid, just learning about motorcycles, and I didn't patch until 2011. So you would look at it in terms of almost 20 plus years. I just never felt like, there was a lot of clubs that were courting me, and there was a lot of clubs that I kind of was playing around with the notion that I was going to go ahead and join a motorcycle club. But every time that I got to that point where I wanted to join it, there was some BS. It just wasn't the way I was taught, and I couldn't do it the wrong way. And that's one of the, I would say it's a great thing about me, and it's probably one of the the most negative things about me is I won't do shit halfway. Excuse my language. I don't know if I can cuss on here, but
Hey man, do your thing, talk.
I just don't do it halfway. And if it's not done the right way, I won't do it. And so that's really, I would say it's a great thing about me, and it's been a bad thing because I stand by my ethics, and that's how I was taught. So I don't know anything other than that. And I've always been that way. So I have to live by my code of ethics. And my code of ethics is don't do shit halfway. You got to do it 100% or don't do it at all.
That's my motto in life. I think you're a man who live by certain principles, or you won't bend. That's just the way you live, and you've been very successful. I know you have a family. You're a veteran, right? You're a veteran also.
Yeah, retired combat vet. The biggest aspect that I would say, the reason why I was able to transition, because when we kind of talked about it, but I was never about, I'm old school. So in the old school era, you learned by getting on your bike and riding and breaking bread and finding people in those little hole in the wall clubs. Literally, I used to go to places and go, man, where's the grimiest place in the world where the bikers hang out at? And I would go in there and I would find the guy that was sitting in the back of the thing, and hey man, let me buy you a beer, just get in your ear. And so that was really my claim to fame, throughout South Carolina and into Virginia. I just would go into the crappiest bars and find the grimiest guys and just learn. Had opportunity to ride side by side with a guy for about 2 years, and it was funny because I didn't even know his name. We didn't know each other. We just, hey, what's up, blah blah blah. We would jump on the bikes, and I'd see him at a rest area, and I would pull over, and we would ride because he rode up and down from Florida to Maryland. And for 2 years, like literally, I think we were in about a year, and we finally were like, hey, what's your name anyway? So, that was just kind of how it is. We had our meetup points, and hey, I'll meet you here, I'll meet you there. And if we were there, we were there. If we weren't, then we just keep pushing. But one of the things that I've always addressed with people is you're not going to learn anything on the internet. You're really going to learn by getting out there, have an opportunity to break bread with people, talk, and get an education. And that's just where it's at.
Yes, that's something that I try to explain to my club members is that all these guys in Canada, they don't have a lot of knowledge on the ground and meeting people because there's not that many places for us to grow. Canada's a big country, but it's not that many cities like America. So what we try to do is we try to cross that bridge and engage in all you guys, because let me tell you something. I've written motors for a long time. I've been on set for 40 years, but I only started a club 11 years ago. And I used to ride to all the sturges and roundups and all those shows by myself. And I met some of the most amazing people. To get back, what I want to say to you is that all these guys and these people who start motorcycle clubs and join clubs without bikes, I don't fucking get it. I don't get that, because they just don't. And I was talking to a young woman, a friend of mine, and she's always in the club for 3 years. No, I said, why? Like, how do you do that? Like, what is that?
There's no such thing as joining a motorcycle club without a motorcycle. That's just how it is. You can, you're almost a t-shirt member, it's like you're a t-shirt member, and that's really what it comes down to. And, you shouldn't, the way I look at it and what I would say to somebody like that is I said, well, you should have never put a vest on because you're disrespecting the actual aspects of the motorcycle vest and the colors that are on your back, because those colors, and so I understand how it is with you, because, being up in Canada was sort of like how when I went to Europe, I had an opportunity to be around some of the European motorcycle clubs,
Right.
and they were in their infancy. And so, it's kind of like the same thing as it's a great concept that you have this platform because you are actually educating. So what you're going through is exactly what I was going through back in the 80s, when it was an anomaly to see a guy on the motorcycle riding across, like just up and down the highway. Like
Right.
you saw, he was like, oh, that's the unicorn. It's not like how it is now. It just wasn't. And so when you saw a guy, you were like, holy crap, there's a dude on a motorcycle, because motorcycles were not as common back in those time frames. And so what you guys are rolling or doing right now is exactly what I was kind of doing when I was riding in the late parts of 87 and 88, because there was times I get on the road, I guarantee you I didn't see more than 1 or 2 bikes the whole time I was on the road. And I might ride from Jacksonville, Florida, all the way up to the Philly, and I might see 3 or 4 bikes at the most and be like, holy crap, there's another guy on a bike.
It's really funny, man. I was on Facebook and I was reading some of the stuff you were saying about Atlantic Beach, and I thought that was really interesting what you said. And
Yeah.
I always say this. I said, why do anybody want to go somewhere if they don't want your money? I don't get that. Why do you fight that? If somebody don't want you there, why go? I don't get that.
Yeah, and the bad part about it is the initial concepts of Atlantic Beach Bike Fest for Americans, for Black Americans, was the only place on the Eastern Seaboard that you could actually go. And we're saying from the Mississippi River to the East Coast, it was the only place that Black Americans were actually allowed to go to a beach. I mean, not just, it was literally that segregated. And so the history of that area is so prominent, but the club that initiated all of the actual Atlantic Beach Bike Fest, Memorial Day, it was a Memorial Day event. It was for Black riders. It was for a place that you could come to and you could get a chance to learn some history. And it was done by a group called the Carolina Night Riders. Now, they were named Flaming Night Riders before that, but then they ended up being Carolina Night Riders. And the initial concepts of that whole process was go to the clubhouse, break bread. All the vendors were around there. Everybody hung out at the beach. Everybody enjoyed themselves. Everybody had a good time. And that was what the Atlantic Beach Bike Fest was. And, Myrtle Beach saw, they saw an opportunity to take advantage of that. And that's exactly what they did. And over the years, the Bike Fest has changed from its original concepts to, hey, anybody come. And so now all of a sudden you have, it ain't the bikers that's causing the issues and the problems. It's the outside people that are causing the issues and problems. But I mean, come on, man. If you get a bunch of people together and you get a bunch of women together, hey, people gonna come.
Right.
The city has a history of racial. It has a history of racist. And that's just what it was. In the South,
We're kind of losing your voice a little bit. I think it's your internet.
Oh, it might be. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So,
That's really, go ahead.
Well,
right.
The aspect of it that comes down to it is, when you're looking at the South itself, you have to learn how the South is and go with it. And so how Myrtle Beach did is they really were at a point where they wanted to move the Bike Fest away from Myrtle Beach because of all of the secondary issues, not realizing that they were alienating the people that actually were we're talking, you got to realize the amount of money that's being processed through that thing. You're talking 100,000 people that are showing up in one area at one time in some cases. You're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars. And the original concept of that was to help out the city of Atlantic Beach, which was a predominantly Black area at the time. It was to help the city and stuff like that. And they took it away from them. And, it's unfortunate, but, hopefully it's a wake-up call for Black Americans to understand that, and like you said, if they don't want your money, why are you supporting it? I'll be honest, I haven't been to Myrtle Beach area since 2003, but I've been to the Carolina Night Riders in Atlantic Beach. And
Okay.
that's what I did.
I've never been there. I just read these stories and and I just look at it as I don't really look at it if they don't want my money. I'm not going in hotels and restaurants. I'm just not going to spend it. I'm not mad about it, and that's just the way it is. That's how I see it. And I thought I talked about it to you because I thought it was interesting. I was reading the thing. That's something I didn't really know, but I hear these stories all the time. And then it's funny because you say, for instance, Myrtle Beach. It's funny, I was talking to a woman in Canada. I had some friends who live there, and she was talking about Black Bike Week was different than the other Myrtle Beach thing they got going there, right? I said, what's the difference? She goes, well, a lot of kids just tend to a room and they party. I said, well, I'm asking you a question. They don't do that at spring break? White kids don't do that? I don't get it. Isn't it just kids?
I mean, it's so Florida has an event. It used to be called BCR, which was the Black College Reunion. So now the BCR was a Greek. It was a Greek letter or Greek fraternities and sororities all got together and said, we're going to go to Daytona Beach and we are going to have a huge gathering in Daytona Beach in a specific time frame. So now you have spring break, which if anybody's watched, Yo MTV Raps or any of the other ones back in the mid 90s, you always saw the spring breaks. And then you had the next week, you had BCR. So spring break was one way, BCR was another way. So when you went to BCR, there was about 6 cops every block.
Right.
So every block they had cop cars, and I'm talking about 5 miles stretch, and it was a cop on each block, and they would monitor traffic. When you went to spring break, it wasn't like that at all. And that was it. Inevitably, what Daytona Beach did was they pushed BCR out of Daytona Beach because they were doing the same thing that Myrtle Beach is doing right now.
Right.
And that's, and it's unfortunate that it got to that point, but they try to point fingers. But if you look at the numbers across the board, you have Harley Week, which is the week before Atlantic Beach Bike Fest, because I don't call it Black Bike Week, but a week before that you have Harley Week. Now Harley Week, which is the Harley Week, none of the things that happen during Black Bike or during the Atlantic Beach Bike Fest happens. There's no, there's no loop, none of that stuff. There ain't no issues, there ain't no problems. The numbers in terms of tickets, in terms of accidents, in terms of arrests, those numbers go hand in hand with each other. So there's no separation. You can't lie and say, oh, well, it's more violent this time frame or there's more. But anytime you have one situation that happens, it gets splashed all over the news like it's, like it's the worst thing since, just crazy. But yet they don't address what happened in Harley Week. They don't address the accidents. They don't address the drugs. They don't address all the rest of the things that are associated with Harley Week. But they definitely want to, splash, well, there was, a fight or there was this or there was that. So I mean, that's what it is.
My kids used to go to spring break, the whole college thing, and they used to do that. And my sons come back and tell me that it was just crazy fights and like just the same. It's just kids. They're all like 19, 20. The kids are stupid. And I think it's the same thing with Black Bike Week because it seems to me that's more of a sport bike. The kids who ride the sport bike to go to that, and they're just very young, and they're college kids also. They just maybe have a motorcycle. But it's sad that it's like that. Maybe one day this world will change differently. Yes, you rode in different types of sets, and you rode in, like, I know you rode with the white set up in California, and you're doing what you with Sin City, which is a great club. Actually, I know Sonny is a great dude. I know about your club. What's the difference between a black set? Is it that much different? Because, some people get it twisted.
To be honest, it's a very different, it's a different concept. I mean, I look at it as one of the things during, in my time frame that I was in my former nation for 6 years, it was really, really structured. I mean, everything was structured. I mean, that's a good thing and a bad thing because when you have so much structure, it almost becomes military. And in some cases, it really takes some of the fun out.
Right.
And then you have like my nation now. I went to Daytona Bike Week. I had the best. I had a good time because we had a good time and we enjoyed ourselves. We had a good time. We went there, we rode, we did a lot of things. There wasn't a bunch of meetings. There wasn't a bunch of, hey, we need to do this or what. It just was a different atmosphere. So I think the concept of it is a free flowing in terms of the black set is more of a free flowing. Let's enjoy ourselves, have a good time. And then when you look at the white side, it's let's have a good time, but everything is really structured. And I've seen it across the board because I've been to several houses. If there's a Big Five club, I've been in their house. I've sat with them. I've had a conversation. Well, there's only one club that I haven't sat with and had a conversation, but every other club that you look at as a Big Five club, I've sat in their clubhouses. I've talked with them. I know a few of them. I know them well. I still have communications with probably at least about 6 of them, Big Five white clubs. I still have communications with the guys that I knew from that time frame, and we still communicate. And so you look at it in the separation between the two. I wouldn't see in terms of the protocols and the traditions and the things like that. I feel like those run hand in hand with each other. I would just address more conformity versus individuality, and that's a good thing and a bad thing. Sometimes you have conformity is a great thing if it's a more structured situation, and then sometimes being real structured is not fun. You know what I mean? Like, because we got into this for specific reasons. We got into it so we could go break bread, have fun, be with our brothers, enjoy, drink, and party, and that's what it should be about.
Yeah, I just think I think most clubs, they need a little bit of structure. You need a little bit of structure, but not like what you say. Because I like up here, all I know is a few of the white clubs, and they are very structured and they do things differently. So when I started the Gypsies up here, I just wanted to use some structure, but not for a little bit of freedom. Because I got some crazy dudes in my club who like to have fun and like to go to clubhouse and like to meet people. We never been in it to have fights with anybody, none of that. But the thing, if it came our way, then we would deal with it. But we never had. We're very lucky, So I'm glad you said that, because I'm on a lot of social networks and listening and reading a lot of stuff, and I'm on the Black network and I'm listening to some of this stuff and seeing like a lot of these guys are just making shit up as they go along. Because I'm learning some stuff. I'm thinking, what the hell is that? What are you talking about?
It's just one of the things I think is inevitably, if you look at historical factors, a majority of, and I would say 90% of the actual Black set or the Black clubs, they initiated themselves or they formed themselves after a certain period of time frame. We're looking at the 60s, whatever it is, where some of the white clubs, they were established back in the 30s. Now, trust me, there are some Black clubs that were back in the 30s and back in the 40s. They weren't as structured and they were not as predominant. They were very small clubs. So there are clubs that have 50, 60 years that have been around the situations. But when you look at it in terms of that, you have white clubs that really kind of started right after the Depression era. It started to kind of pick itself up in the 29s, 30s, around that time frame, after the Gypsy stuff started kind of fading itself out, and clubs were kind of addressing themselves to racers. Most of the guys that were on the Gypsy tours, they were racers. And so that was a lot of what the motorcycle clubs established were first about. And then like at 36, when you had like, I'm trying to think what the name of the guy, the Booze Fighters and the Poor Dirty Bastards. And, those type of clubs, a lot of this transition and a lot of stuff that actually came from that started with the Black clubs in the 60s, the 50s, and the 60s. I think the 50s was the start of some of the more predominant Black clubs. But they emulate, or they've gotten some of their information and knowledge from the white side, because initially the white side was the only side that was on there. And in all honesty, for Black Americans, it was really the only way you could do it, because they didn't really allow Black Americans to ride motorcycles. I mean, you had to scrape around and do that, and you had to do a lot of different things. And so that's one of the things I think gets lost in America is people don't respect what Black Americans had to do in order for them to be a part of a motorcycle.
Yes.
Because
thank you.
It was everything. I mean, it was everything. It was not only, you're talking about segregation, you're talking about Jim Crow laws, you're talking about, like civil rights. You were talking about an era, and that's what, like, a lot of these kids that are here now in the 2000s, they don't understand the sacrifices that these clubs made and how they had to establish themselves. And I think one of the biggest transitions that I see, and in talking to some of the older guys, is the fact that they continued to do things the way that they wanted to do things. Even though they took some of the protocols and some of the traditions, they kind of did their own thing. The problem that you have with that is there are specific protocols and traditions that are established across the board. So that it doesn't matter whether it's a Black club or a white club, those traditions and protocols, they go hand in hand with each other. And then all of a sudden you have somebody that'll come in and they'll go, oh, well, I'm going to do this, but then all of a sudden they're like, well, yeah, we used to do, come on, man, we used to do it back in the day. No, you didn't. There's no such thing as a WMC. There's no such thing as a women's motorcycle club. There was no such thing as a women's motorcycle club. So you can't say, oh, that's how it was back in the day. No, it wasn't, because back in the day, there wasn't no women's motorcycle club.
Exactly.
There wasn't any. So you can't say that this is how it was, because that ain't how it is. But yet it was somebody that decided to do that and decided to put that patch on there, when historically that's not correct. And it's, in actuality, it's incorrect. So that's one of the biggest, I think, drawbacks to letting people that have kind of come into this, and how do I say this the right way? A lot of diamonds that you have today, they've gotten their diamond. They didn't earn their diamond. All right, let's put it that way. Because you had to earn your diamond. That meant that you prospected, you went through hell, you didn't learn anything as a prospect. Your first 2 years as a diamond, you learned everything that you needed to know about being a diamond. That was when you actually got your education. Because as a prospect, you didn't learn the set, you learned the nation, you learned your club.
Right.
Then you had a year to 2 years. Most of the clubs on the white side, they have a year of a probationary thing, where in all honesty, they don't want to hear your fucking mouth. They tell you, don't say nothing, learn, shut up and learn. And, some clubs patch it out or pull it out to 2 years. And, like before you actually can be a part of, like in terms of officer corps or whatever it is. And that's because you have to learn about the set. You've got to learn about everything it takes to be a 1%er. Just because you prospect, it doesn't mean you're a 1%er. When you put the patch on, that's when the work starts. That's when you start learning how to be a 1%er. I guarantee you that it was a year before I really knew what it meant to be a 1%er. It was a year before I really understood brotherhood. And that's what, like, a lot of people throw that word around, oh, brotherhood, oh, brotherhood. Do they really understand what it takes and what it costs in order for you to say that? And that's what gets miscued, and that's what gets kind of tossed around. And I would say that's one of the biggest things, like what you're addressing in terms of people making up shit. I mean, I all day, people making up shit. Somebody the other day was like, oh, they got a PS club now, so public safety motorcycle club. Like, really people.
I think, James, a lot of men join motorcycle clubs for different reasons. But the reason that you should be joining it, if you give them a list and ask these dudes today, maybe because they saw the TV show Sons of Anarchy, maybe there's some glamour shit into it. I don't know what it is. But the thing is, if you ask, you get a club of 5 guys asking why they join it, and none of them today can tell you why the real reasons they should join a motorcycle club. It's so simple.
Well, they got the, I'm trying to think, it's a catchphrase. I'm looking for camaraderie. I'm looking for brotherhood. I'm looking for this. Every time somebody says that to me, I go, but why did you really want to be a part of this? Well, I'm looking for that. No, stop. Why do you really want to be a part of this? Because being a diamond holder, being a 1%er, it sucks. It does. Like, a lot of people don't understand how it affects your life. And, like when you're in some of these other diamond clubs that are not as known, then you might skirt that. But when you're in one of the clubs that's known, it affects your family, it affects your job, it affects your life, it affects everything that you do, from the time you leave out your house to the time you pull into your clubhouse to the time you go out to a bar. Everything you do, it has an effect. It's like a ripple effect.
Right.
And you're only one incident or one situation from losing your family, losing your life, and maybe even being incarcerated. And that's sometimes, I tell people, I try not to be an ass about it, but, I say, like, you don't really understand what it takes to be a diamond. You don't understand how it is to be an outlaw, because you're living in an era where you don't have to be an outlaw. I mean, that's just real talk right now.
Right.
You don't have to be an outlaw in 2021. You don't, because this isn't 1980. This ain't 1990. You don't have to go out to your car and look up underneath your car to see if there is a bomb underneath it. You know, you don't have to ride around all day. Well, some people do. Some people still have to deal with this. You don't have to ride around all day wondering if somebody's going to shoot you off your bike. You know, you don't have to worry about a pipe bomb being thrown through your front window. So it's easy being an outlaw today. And a lot of these guys that are outlaws, a lot of these guys that are diamonds, they're living off the coattails of guys that died, guys that went to jail, guys that are in their club right now, and they don't have enough respect for those guys to even understand what they've been able to actually do right now based on what these guys have sacrificed.
Wow, yeah, you just said enough right there. It was really good what you just said, because like it is, like I say, it's so many guys, like I say, they watch TV and they think that's what they want to be, but they don't know the sacrifices. And I'll tell you something, like I always say this motorcycle shit is so selfish, because you you never want to go home. If you have wife and children, you always want to be at the clubhouse. You always want to put my money into your bike.
I tell you, man, my uncle, they didn't have wives. Two of my uncles didn't have wives. They rode. And one day they might just jump on the highway, and I would see him and I'd be like, Uncle T, man, where you going? We're going to roll over to Arizona. Now, understand, this is California up in Oakland, Arizona. That's a good ride. You know, you're going through the Death Valley and all the rest of that. You know, they're on fucking Sportsters, you know, chopped up Sportsters.
Right.
And, you know, so, you know, I'm looking at them, they're packing up their bikes, and then they're just telling me like, how you get, we, you know, sleeping on the side of the roads, tanning, you know, and my Uncle T and my Uncle Junior and about 3 other guys, they all lived in one house. So they had like this big flop house. And they all hung out with each other, and they all kind of rode around with each other. They weren't a club, but they were together.
Yeah.
And that's the way they live their life. And I told myself once, I just said, I don't ever want to live my life to where I have to have 5 people living up in a house with me. I want something soft and warm I can live with. I want a woman, you know. And, you know, so education, you start to understand, you know, they lived as nomads, you know, they lived as gypsies, you know, so, you know, that's something that you don't see in today's world. You know, you see some that are like that, but you don't see that. They're the anomaly now, you know.
It's funny because I have a lot of guys across America that didn't know like black dudes who rode bikes in Canada. And so we friended, and I'm friends with so many dudes, and it's so cool. Like, you know, when the borders open, they always come visit me. So do you too. If you're more than welcome to come check us out. We don't have a clubhouse with stripper poles and shit in it. We got like classrooms. Because what it is like, I'm going to show your video to the guys, you know, this video to the guys. And all we do is we study, we try to learn, you know, like we don't really have any OGs here to teach us anything. Of course, we can go to the white side and try to learn things, but as soon as we cross that border, it's a whole different ballgame being black men.
And it completely is, because, you know, like it is a completely different animal in saying it like that, you know, because the black set is just different. I mean, it is, I love it for the individuality. I love it for the originality. I love it for, in some cases, the chaos. You know, I love it for the concept of just enjoying themselves. Just let's get here, let's party. I think that is where it's at. And the funny thing about it, as black men and black women, you know, we shouldn't have animosity and issues towards each other, because we are the minorities. I mean, we are, you know, we have the stigma that's out there with racism and with all the rest of the stuff that happens with sexism and all that. And you would consider that we would never have an issue with each other, and we would be able to get together and party and enjoy ourselves. And once we can understand the bigger picture, you know, that's what I would hope within the black community, that we could figure it out, understand the bigger picture as black men and black women, is uplifting the black men and black women, you know, that are riding next to us and that are riding with us and they're riding on the same highways as us. And that's where, as a black man, we have to get to the point of, it's a bigger ball than we're understanding that we're carrying. You know what I mean? Like we think we got a golf ball, but we have a bowling ball. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, there's a significant history that we have to understand.
Well, James, that's the reason why I started this platform. For the simple fact is, it's funny. I have guys here in Canada, right? And all they know is the white set and the black men. And I try to explain to them. I said, look, you don't understand something. It's not like that over the US side because I watch you guys mean mugging everybody because to tell you something, a lot of white clubs in Canada, none of them get along with each other. That's just the way it is here. That's just the culture here. But I had to explain to them, once you cross the border and go to a roundup and one of these events, every black club don't want to hate each other, want to fight each other. It's not like this. So you get misinformation about the whole thing because they thought all of it was like that.
Yeah.
To them. So I started this platform to inform and inspire everybody. Even like this platform is too. It's just not about what the blacks and the whites. I try to bring the whole world into this because I met some guys through social media in Thailand, South Asia, Vietnam who ride motorcycle. Guys in Cuba have a club, and they asked me to put them on the show. And I think that's good for all of us to see all that.
Absolutely. You don't look. People don't realize it. What you have here until you go and ride in. I rode in Egypt, and I rode, from Cairo. Actually, I rode from Alexandria into Cairo and back. And you don't realize what you have in terms of, safety.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you look at the groups out there, and there's no such thing as a motorcycle club out there. There's only like maybe 2 motorcycle clubs. Everybody wears vests and nobody rides.
Right.
And even when I was in Germany, it was really the same way. It was like, it was weird that people in Germany, it just seemed like they were living off of Sons of Anarchy, and they were living off of maybe what was said and the lifestyle, how everything was happening back in the 70s and 80s and stuff like that. And I say this to people all the time, man. Look, as a diamond, I'm not a drug dealer. I don't deal drugs. I don't do that. I'm actually anti-drug. I don't rob people. I don't steal motorcycles. I don't do all the stuff that you see on Sons of Anarchy. I don't do all the stuff that you see on all these movies or how they want to portray you. Most outlaws, if you look at 99.9% of the outlaws today, they got jobs, they got families, they have households, they go to work 9 to 5. Some of them work on motorcycles, other ones, lawyers, you got doctors, you've got every aspect that you have that are diamonds right now. And so the whole concept of what was, or what is thought as being a 1%er or diamonds really kind of changed. And I think a lot of the ignorance hasn't changed with it. And a lot of the misunderstandings haven't changed with it. And I think, again, I go back to the same thing that I'm saying. And I had a great conversation with a guy, man. I mean, he had defiant ones. I mean, goodness. I mean, he started when I started, but he was in a motorcycle club. So he started in 70, I think he said 75 or 76, and so when we were talking, he says, a lot of these guys don't understand the concept of reality. Reality is, this ain't 1960s. This ain't 1960s. This ain't 1980s. This is 2020 at the time. He says, we should be getting along with each other. We should be doing this and breaking bread with each other. There isn't a question. He goes, I'm not talking about black or white. I'm talking about just motorcyclists or bikers. We should be getting together and doing this. There should be no animosity or problems with that. He goes, but as black men, we should really be doing this. He goes, because you give us 2 seconds, man, there's a barbecue going, there's some drinks going, maybe some dominoes and some spades happening, and definitely late night, they're going to be a shuffle line or something like that. I'm like, that's the flavor, man. That's how it is when you come this way.
But James, I tell you something. Every diamond holder that I met say exactly the same words you just said, and especially the guys over 50. I think a lot of these guys, the younger guys, like I say, watch Sons of Anarchy, and they actually think that's what the motorcycle set is all about without actually talking to some OGs. And what I like to do is always bring OGs on my show to talk to them and explain what you just explained. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here, but I'm just tell you something, man. It was so good to talk to you. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you just got off work with your family, and you just explained the little things you just said right now make a lot of sense. I'm gonna make sure everybody sees that. These young dudes need to see dudes like you. They need to see dudes and hear guys like you and what you just said. You ride with one of the most prominent motorcycle clubs in American City Disciples. I guess I met those guys up in Gary, Indiana. Like, you guys have been around a long time, since 1969.
Actually, 67 is when it initiated. 66 is when it initiated. 67 is when they actually founded.
You guys have been around a long time, and I was up at the clubhouse in Gary, Indiana, and, you know, because I'm originally from Chicago, and I got some friends in Gary. I stopped by and we hung out, and I had some beers up there. Very cool. And what you just said is so important to all these young dudes who think joining the Diamond Club is about fuckery and also about mean mugging and being an alpha, being a gentleman.
Yeah, it actually isn't, man. And that's one of the things I think my platform is really, I've pushed the platform is to understand that there's a bigger responsibility as a diamond holder that a lot of people don't understand. As a diamond holder, you really are you're the purveyor of all the information. You should be you should be the example. And if you're fucked up, then what do you expect your people to be? They're going to be fucked up too. So you got to keep it. You just got to understand your responsibilities as in terms of being a diamond and being in charge.
Well, it's funny because what I do is I talk to more guys like yourself than I do. I don't really know any 99%. So most of the guys I get on and chop it up with is the clubs have been around since the 50s and 60s. And that's again, they taught me a lot. They taught me a lot about this whole thing, what I'm doing, how to behave, how to deal with other clubs who want, who get stupid with me, how to deal with it. And it worked out well. Anyway, I'm gonna let you go, my brother. And thank you so much, man. And I definitely want to bring you on again sometime, maybe every 2 months. We can chop it up. Like I said, these young men, they need to hear you, man. They need to hear you.
It sounds good, man.
Okay, man. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah, we'll take care, bro.
All right. That was James Washington, and he has that program 101 Tradition Protocol. It's an amazing, you know what? It's like a blue book of this motorcycle shit. You can learn, so get on it. It's on Facebook. I read everything this man writes. He makes a lot of sense what he's saying. And yeah, he's James Washington, he's the real deal. Anyway, my name is Krome. This is Prospect Magazine. I'm signing off. And we're all prospects of life, so we all feel we can learn something. Have a good day, everybody. Have a